Hello everyone, in this video I will show you how to display a crosshair on the player's screen and make it change color when it detects that an enemy is in front of it. I will go over how to import images, in this case the crosshair, how to display them in the center of your screen and make them switch colors, what line traces are and how they work. You will also learn how to modify projectile movement so that you could customize how your gun shoots, and more. This video assumes that you're a beginner, but not an absolute beginner, meaning that you're fairly new to Unreal Engine, but you know the basics of moving around in the viewport and switching tabs. And if you want to see any of my future Unreal Engine tutorials, be sure to like and subscribe. And comment any video ideas that you'd like to see me make in the future. Since I don't have many subscribers, if you comment a video idea, it's likely that I will make it. By the way, I'm using the first person template in this video, so to follow along exactly with what I'm doing, I recommend using the first person template. First, open up the content browser and create a new folder. Dynamic crosshair, and I will make a widget blueprint to be able to show the crosshair I want to display on screen. Blueprint widget crosshair, and now I will open it and bring the tab up here. Next I will drag in a canvas panel over here so that I could actually add my crosshair image. So I'm going to drag an image, and since I want the crosshair to be in the center of the screen, because if a crosshair was here in the corner it would look weird, I'm going to change the anchor to center, shift control, click. And I'll change the Y size to 100. And I don't have the crosshair image in my project yet, so I need to import it. And I'm using this crosshair pack, which is from a website called Kenny, from which you could download free assets that you could use in your projects. And I'm choosing crosshair 10. I think it looks good. So to import it, all I have to do is drag the crosshair over here. And now I have it in my content browser. Now I want this image to display the crosshair, so I'll go here into the details panel, click on brush, and I could drag in my image. Now I want to display this crosshair image onto the actual player screen. File save. So in order to do that, you have to go to the first person blueprint, right click to spawn event begin play, create widget, and choose the crosshair widget we made before. In order to make the widget visible on the player's screen, you have to add it to the player's viewport. File save, and now you can see it's on the screen. Next, I will create the enemy that when it's directly in front of the player, the crosshair turns red. I'll make the enemy in the dynamic crosshair folder. If I was making an actual game, I would keep this more organized, but for this tutorial I'm just going to make it here. So create a blueprint class, actor, and I will name it BP enemy. So I'm going to add a skeletal mesh component and name it enemy, and I'm just going to add this tutorial TPP skeletal mesh. That's all for the enemy blueprint. Compile, save. Now it's time to go back into the first person character and spawn in an event tick node, then line trace by channel. So a line trace is basically a line in which when it hits something, it gives you a lot of information about what was hit. So if the line trace hits our BP enemy, we want the program to do something. In this case, change the crosshair color to red. But first we have to make the actual line that we want to trace. Get player camera manager. The camera manager gets a reference to the camera that we see over here in the viewport. Next, get actor location, and this is going to be the start point. And in order to actually see the line that we are tracing, I'm going to select draw debug tape and choose for duration and click this arrow. So this just means that the line trace is gonna be visible for 5 seconds. Compile and save. So as you could see, a bunch of lines are being drawn from our camera position to 0, 0, 0, because our start position is our camera position and our end position is 0, 0, 0. And we're drawing these lines every tick, so that means that every frame new lines are being drawn. But we don't want our line to go straight from our camera onto 0, 0, 0. So we have to do something else. So get forward vector and choose any one of these. Delete this and grab the camera manager to the get forward vector. So actually, instead of using the camera manager, I think we could use this camera. Yeah, so this first person camera works as well. And the first person camera is this camera. Okay. In a moment I'm going to explain what this all means. Next I will drag in a normalize mode and a multiply node. And I'm going to create a variable called trace length. Set that to a float, compile, and for now I will set it to 500. And I will get trace length. Instead of dragging trace length onto the event graph and picking get or set. Just drag it in and press Ctrl while you're dragging it in, and it will automatically get the trace length node. Okay. Now add this location to this location, and this is going to be the end trace. Compile, play. So as you could see, now we are drawing trace lines straight in front of us. Okay, so I will explain how this all works. So on every frame, we are going to make a trace line from whatever the start location is to whatever the end location is. And since we want the start location to be where we are, we get the first person camera, which is this, and we get the first person camera's location and connect that to the start of the line trace. Next, we get the first person camera's forward vector. Now the forward vector is this red arrow, basically. So wherever this arrow is pointing, it's the camera's forward vector. The green arrow is the camera's right vector, and the blue arrow is the camera's up vector. And the normalize mode gets the direction of the forward vector. So wherever the camera is pointing towards, the normalize node gets that direction. And then it multiplies that direction by the trace length. So now we have a line that's the length of the trace length, which in this case is 500 centimeters, and that line is pointing in the same direction that our camera is pointing in. So now, if we add the location of the camera to our multiplied value, we will get the line that we want. Hopefully that made sense. It's a lot to take in, so I hope you understood. If you didn't, you could always rewatch that section. Okay, so next we have to actually detect if the line hits our enemy. In order to do that, we have to cast to BP enemy. If the line doesn't hit the enemy, then the cast failed execution pin will run. But if the line does hit our enemy, then whatever is connected to this execution pin will run. Print string, no hit, hit. So if the line hit the enemy, it will print hit. If it didn't hit the enemy, it will print no hit onto the screen. Compiled, save. So let's drag the BP enemy into our level and play the level to see if the line trace works. So as you can see, on our screen it says no hit because the line isn't hitting our enemy. But if you point at the enemy, it's also not hitting. Okay, so I forgot to do something. So in the BP enemy, there are no collisions enabled, which means that even if our line hits the enemy, our line won't know that it hit the enemy because the enemy doesn't have collisions enabled. So to enable collisions, just go to BP enemy, the details panel and scroll down until you find collision and change this to block all dynamic. Compile, save, and play. So as you could see, now when we're pointing at the enemy, we are hitting it with our line trace. So now instead of actually printing messages onto our screen, we have to change the color of the crosshair. So go into the BP crosshair widget, click on the image, go over to appearance, and click over here on tint. So up here we could actually change the color of the crosshair. Compile. So our crosshair is now red, but we want it to only turn red when the enemy is in front of us. So let's come back to the crosshair widget and turn it back to white. Go into the graph section, and here we could make a custom event, call it enemy crosshair, and when this event is called, enemy crosshair, and drag in the image. Again, press Ctrl if you want to get the image, and set tint. Set brush color tint. Promote the color tint to a variable so that we could store the colors that we want our crosshair to turn into. Compile. And change this color to red. And make another event. So this event will be called when we detect an enemy, and this event will be called when we no longer detect the enemy. Copy paste. Promote to variable normal color. Make sure to compile so that you could edit the variable. I want my normal color to be white so that when the enemy is detected, the crosshair will turn red, and when it's no longer detected, it will turn white. Compile and save. Now go back into the first person character. We could get rid of the print strings. Now we have to make it so that when we cast to the BP enemy and the cast fails, we will call the normal color event, and when the cast doesn't fail, we will call the enemy color event. In order to do that, we could call the events from here. Normal crosshair and enemy crosshair. Drag them over here. So when it detects an enemy, we want enemy crosshair to be enabled, and when it doesn't detect the enemy anymore, we want the normal crosshair to be enabled. Compile, save. As you can see, when the enemy is detected, the crosshair turns red. I will stop the drawing of the line trace to make it more visible. Compile, save. So you see, when the enemy is detected, the crosshair turns red. So now I want to make some changes because this kind of event graph looks kind of ugly. In order for it to look more organized, I will create a variable, promote a variable, and call this crosshair UI reference. And connect all of these pins together. So this just means that when this widget is created, we will store it in a variable. So here we could use the variable that we made above to call the event from the blueprint widget. And because we're using a variable, we make the graph look a lot nicer and make our blueprints more readable. Compile and save. It works. As you can see, the crosshair isn't turning red when I'm this far away, and that's because it only turns red when we are 500 centimeters away from the enemy. And usually in a shooter that's not the case, because when you're far away, your crosshair is also red. So to fix that, just change the trace length to anything. I'll change it to 3000. Compile, save. Now when we are far away, it still turns red. As you can see, our bullets bounce around and don't really shoot straight when you shoot them. So in order to make our bullets shoot straight and not bounce around, I'm going to go into first person blueprints and first person projectile. And over here in projectile movement, change should bounce to false. So now our projectiles won't bounce. And change the projectile gravity scale to 0. So no gravity will be affecting our projectile anymore. And if you want, you could also make it go faster by increasing this to a higher number. Compile, save. And now, as you can see, our bullets shoot straight and don't bounce anymore. And whenever our crosshair is hovering over the enemy, it turns red. I hope this helped, and be sure to like if this video helped you, and subscribe for more Unreal Engine 5 tutorials. Have a nice day.